Hello and welcome to Supervision Smorgasboard, a podcast full of tips, tricks, and interviews with experts to help you enjoy being a supervisor. Here's your host, Dr. Tara Sanderson.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking with Taylor Kravitz. Her pronouns are she, they. Taylor is a queer femme, neurodivergent human, a mama, an anti-capitalist lover of business, and a sex and relationship therapist. They are the founder of Empowered Fulfillment Therapy, a group practice in Portland, Oregon, specializing in sex therapy, couples therapy, and neurodivergent affirming therapy. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's always so funny to hear yourself introduced.
Described, right?
Yeah.
It is. It's always so interesting. Well, as you know, we ask a random question on our podcast, and this week's question actually came from my husband. What movie would you like to see remade with Muppets?
I love this question. Okay, for some reason, the first thing that came to my mind was the Nancy Drew movie, which actually isn't that old. It has Emma Roberts. So, she's not that old. It can't be that old. But I watched it when I was like maybe in high school years. But I've always been like a little sleuth. I love Nancy Drew. I love Nancy Drew games. I think it'd be so fun to have like a little mystery detective Muppet movie.
Yes. I love that. Okay, so would Nancy Drew's character be the human, or would Nancy Drew's character be a Muppet and somebody else be the human in it?
Ooh, I like the idea of Nancy Drew's character being the Muppet.
Right?
It'd be so cute, a little.
It would be
detective.
adorable. That would be so, so cute. I love it. That's a really good one. So today we're going to be talking about supervising and supporting neurodivergent clinicians. And I was mentioning before the episode that I actually went to a training today on supervising neurodivergent clinicians. So like this is hot on my mind today with all of the ideas that are out there. I want to just completely open up the floor, and maybe you could just give us like the top things that you think about when you think about supporting neurodivergent clinicians, and we'll just riff from there.
Yeah, I love it. This is like one of my favorite things to do professionally is to support neurodivergent clinicians. I do it as a supervisor. I do it in business coaching. I love being a therapist for neurodivergent therapists. So it's just like my favorite. Something I've been sitting with a lot lately is like really zooming out to the more systemic view of what informs doing this work with neurodivergent clinicians. And I've been thinking about how in the field, it's set up with neurotypical standards in mind. I think we talk about how to accommodate clients, maybe not as much as even we should, but a lot more than we talk about how to accommodate clinicians. And I think a lot of the ways we look at, what it means to do therapy well are rooted in those neurotypical expectations. So that's something I've been reflecting on probably most is what does it look like to actually like deconstruct ableism and those neurotypical expectations in the context of therapy and being the therapist? Like, what if a clinician needs a little more time to process? So they're not able to like put the patterns together in session as quickly. So they're asking clients for a little pause to think more often, or they're having longer sessions because that's what their brain needs to really like integrate the information and put it all together. So that's just one example, but I think we don't talk about that often. I definitely didn't hear about it in grad school at all. I mean, we barely talked about neurodivergence, but definitely not when you're actually the one who is neurodivergent or living with disability in some way. So that's where my brain goes first.
Yeah. And one of the things that I like in that is asking the person, like whether it's the clinician or the supervisee or whoever it is, to really be thoughtful about what are the barriers that are getting in your way? Like
Mm-hmm.
what are the rules that we have as a practice, or the rules of counseling, and not even like rules with a capital R, right? These are
Yeah.
little R rules
Yeah.
that get in your way, that frustrate you, or rub you the wrong way, or just grate against you. And then let's see, what is it that we can adjust from that? Is it a capital R rule that we
Mm-hmm.
have to figure out a way to finagle, or is it a little R rule that says something like, does professionalism mean that you dress a certain way, and that you have your feet on the floor, and that you sit in this like open position in therapy? Gosh, I cannot tell you how many of my supervisors going through grad school kept telling me, Tara, stop sitting on your foot, because I always have one foot up underneath of me and I'm always looking a little wonky in my chair.
Yes.
And and how many times they were like, Tara, that's not an open posture. You need to have an open posture. And I was like, I don't understand what you're talking about. Like, how's this not open? But being able to say, like, that's a little R rule, that you need to look a certain way for therapy, or sit a certain way for therapy, or that you have to take notes or never take notes because that gets in the way of you and your client. All of those little R rules can grate. And being able to look at that person and say, for you, what works and what doesn't work, and then let's make the adjustments around that.
Absolutely. I love that you bring that up, because there are like those big R rules when it comes to client care that, if client care is impacted in a way that could cause harm to a client, or they're not getting their needs met, we definitely want to explore that. But there are so many of those little R rules. Like another one that comes to mind is around eye contact. Um,
Yes.
there's so much like pressure and expectations around eye contact in society in general, but definitely as a therapist, because we, are just told like this is one of the ways that you show that you're attuning to somebody. And so I've talked with supervisees around like, what if you could just tell clients like, hey, I'm someone that doesn't make a ton of eye contact. That actually helps me feel more connected to you and present and engaged with you. Like, what is that like? What if that could be okay? Instead of, I was working with someone, a colleague, and they're like, I'm so anxious about eye contact that I'm actually not hearing the client, and I'm like struggling to be present because I'm like so like look at them, look at them, look at them, look at that place on the wall, like do the thing. So I think those little R rules can actually be a barrier to like showing up as our best clinician self, and it's so worth exploring those and just deconstructing them if they're not
Yeah.
actually serving us or the clients.
Yeah. I remember a few times where I work with teens a lot, and I feel like teens is also a space where you have to adjust a lot of the little R rules. And I remember working with a teenager who regularly would come into my office, grab the snack from the little snack spot, grab the blanket, curl up in like the crevice of the couch, wrap the blanket around them, eat their little snack with basically just their little eyes peeking out. And I would sit there and just like be working on stuff for about 5 minutes while they ate their little snack and got all situated. And then eventually we would have session. And most of the time, I'm not sure I saw their whole face like
Yeah.
during sessions, because this was just what felt the most secure to them so that they could do the work that we needed to do together.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having a couple of students come in during those sessions to do some observation and try and like help them get into whatever. And the looks on their faces of like, what are we doing here? Like, this is not therapy. And I'm like, how
Yeah.
is this not? This is the best therapy. This feels like deep, connected, we get each other therapy. And I can't imagine feeling more connected to this client right now if she was just sitting there like, how we imagine therapy trying to be. I don't know that she would get to the depth of what she gets to when she sits like she does. And then, yeah, during session, sometimes she does put her cover up completely over her face when she's trying to tell me something really hard,
Yeah.
because that's safer for her. Okay, what? Let's just accept that. And being able to flip that into the space of like, how can we make this space really feel that connected and that close for us as therapists? How can we be our full selves in here? And sometimes that's really hard in offices where you maybe share space and you can't like conform the space perfectly to how you would want it to be. But like, what else can you do? I have therapists who bring in like their specific blankets or pillows that they really like because that's what helps them in that space. I have therapists who absolutely clear off the desk when they are in that space and they put it all back on when they come back in. I have one therapist who absolutely brings a plant in with her, whatever room she's in. I have a lot of fake plants. They look nice enough, but like not real. But she brings in her real plant because she's just like, I need this for me. Yeah. Great. Like none of those are deal breakers for people to experience being themselves in that space.
Absolutely. It can feel like really, really big to the clinician because it's like disrupting these ideas that they've heard for so long. But in actuality, it can be a really little thing. Like, like it's like, oh, I'll get like a lamp so you don't have to have the scary overhead light on. That's kind of like notorious in neurodivergent communities that we hate overhead lights. And there's like fidgets in the office and it's, cozy. And, those accommodations are just accepted and built in. And what I love about it in your story with the teenage client that you're talking about is the more that we're able to model that, self-accommodation and advocating for our needs and being authentic as clinicians, the more our clients can feel like they get to do that in therapy. So now they're not showing up feeling like, oh, if I need to like go to the bathroom or adjust, like I have to sit here awkwardly or I have to nod my head even though I have no idea what you just said. But instead it's like I get to be my full self too. And my therapist is showing that that's okay. And we can do that still in like a boundaried and professional way. It doesn't mean that you're not a professional, skilled clinician because you're showing up as a human.
Yeah. I encourage a lot of my supervisees at some time during their relationship with a client to actually let them know they have to use the restroom and leave and come back.
Yes.
Because I think that's one of the biggest fears of our supervisees is like, well, what if I have to pee in the middle of session? Well, do you just hold it? How do you do this? Well, no, be a human and encourage your clients to be a human. If they need to pee during a session, don't you want them going too? You don't want them holding it for 45 minutes. Like, it's okay. So to practice that piece of saying like sometime during the year with each and every client, I'm going to practice saying, excuse me, I really need to use the restroom really quick. You go and you come back. And it's not the end of the world, terribly distressing to your client that you're human and need to take care of yourself any more than it is for you to drink water during a session. I would say unless you're offering for the client to eat, maybe it's not great to eat in front of your client during session. But like there are times where that can be okay. I regularly eat with my teen clients. Like they grab their snack and chuck me one and we eat our little snack as we're getting ready to do the session. We make accommodations for those things. I would never want my client to say, no, I want you to be in painful pangs of hunger for the next 45 minutes, but also attend to me. Like, no, we just have to be ourselves and discuss what we need and take care of ourselves in the ways that we can.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is where supervision is so valuable because, talking about it, it's like, it feels like, yeah, let's do it, and then when I'm working with a student who's like, okay, I see what you're saying. Neurologically, that like it is true that it's okay for me to take up space in this way, and it could actually be like clinically supportive. I still don't feel like I'm allowed or that I'm deserving or still doesn't quite feel safe. And I think supervision is a really special relationship because there's room for that self of the therapist exploration of like maybe there's some internalized ableism or shame or the messaging that you've heard from other people in leadership positions or who had power over you, that this wasn't okay, and now we get to explore that experientially together, and in that we're also like I'm modeling clinical skills you could do with clients to do that experiential work when they're in a similar bind. So it's just like a really, I feel like, beautiful container to like kind of create some scaffolding around that experience, and how to actually like make it a reality.
Yeah. I would love to pivot and talk about feedback / feed forward with our folks who are neurodivergent. I think one of the areas that a lot of maybe, and I will speak for myself as a neurotypical person or a non-neurodiverse person, that sometimes the places where I get stuck are needing to give feedback and figuring out the best way to give feedback so that things do change in the future. Knowing what I know about working with neurodiverse folks, I think my people pleasing gets in the way of like not wanting to hurt someone's feelings or get them kind of stuck in a spiral or having things go in a direction that I didn't intend. What are some of the top ways that you feel like you could gift to supervisors about like how do we give feedback or feed forward in a way that like could be maybe really effective?
Yeah, I love that question. I feel like anyone who knows me as a clinician or a supervisor knows that I love meta processing. I talk about it all the time. So, what I mean by that is I will kind of bring in my hesitancy and my feelings and talk about it directly with my supervisee. So I might say like, "Hey, there's some feedback I want to explore together and give you, and I notice I feel a little anxious about sharing it with you. I think because I care about you so much, and there's this part of me that like wants to protect you and nurture you, and I never want you to feel hurt in our dynamic, and you know, that makes me feel a little worried about, if I share this feedback with you, how it might land or how it might impact our relationship." So I'm really curious how it feels to know that, and like how it would feel for me to give you feedback that could be, challenging, and what it would be like to work through it together. And then I like to hear their thoughts and like what parts of them get activated as they hear that. They might feel like, oh no, I feel like this part of me that wants to please you feels like I've let you down, or I feel like I'm like going to be in trouble or something bad will happen, and you don't want to work with me anymore, or whatever the fears are. And then we can kind of work through the fears and tend to like our attachment with each other. Um, and then figure out, okay, from here, like, how do we want to create a container for this feedback that feels supportive? So that's like where I love to start, because I
Yeah.
think we can get so in our heads of like, I need to figure it out and script it and find the perfect way to give the feedback. And when we do that, we're doing it just internally with ourselves and not in relationship with the person that we're going to share that feedback with. So that's the first point that definitely comes to mind for me.
Yeah, and I adore that because it does really build off of the relationship with this particular human. Instead of giving the generalities of, well, folks in the neurodivergent kind of world like to experience things in these ways, which, perpetuates the myth that everybody's the same,
Yeah.
instead of saying, like, well, you're in relationship with this person. You, as a supervisor, have been working with this person. You get to meet them where they are and decide together how you are going to move this forward, because every relationship is going to be different in how they decide to build the structure around how you're getting that feedback or what's going to be asked in there. I have some folks in my practice who very much are like, send me an email first. Let me just read all of the stuff, and then I'll figure out some things, and then we'll meet and we'll be able to discuss it together. Don't just bring it up in supervision if we haven't already kind of set the stage for this is what we're going to talk about in supervision. Whether it's a change that needs to be made or feedback on something specific. And I really appreciate that, because then it gives me the ability to go, okay, I can write this email knowing that when they receive it, they're going to take some time, figure out what they want to say with it, get really prepared for that conversation, and then we're going to get together and have a really productive conversation that helps us actually move forward, instead of us wasting the time of me telling them they've stopped listening because they're so focused on the very beginning of our conversation that they now can't move anywhere with the rest of our conversation. So just being very strategic in being a part of each individual relationship.
Absolutely. I feel like that's such a lovely approach because, I mean, it's trauma informed and also it's very neurodivergent affirming to like give folks options for communication. That it's okay if we want to use some like verbal, nonverbal communication, if we want to communicate over writing, or if we just need to slow down. And we know that when we have these feedback discussions, it's a multi meeting process because your processing time is such that you just need a little more space to
Yeah.
reflect and think about how you want to navigate this together. So I think it's great to think about how you can give those options. I think another thing I think about is some things that are common for neurodivergent folks include like rejection sensitivity. Also, a lot of neurodivergent folks have experienced traumatic invalidation. So, just like kind of lifelong invalidation that shows up as this like relational trauma. And so, I really like to keep that in mind and just like let's talk about how that's showing up in the relationship we have. So I'm like, yeah, when I see this, like, does it bring up, other experiences of um, feeling rejected or misunderstood? And also, how can we frame this as like an expression of care? That like part of why I give you this feedback is because I'm on your team and I want you to meet your goals and do well as a clinician, and like we want the same thing. So
Yeah.
it's okay to have those feelings come up and we can work through it together. And maybe it's what's surfacing is some things that have happened for you in the past, and that's okay. But we can acknowledge it and explore it and maybe look at how this could be a little different. And what an opportunity to like, it's kind of framing it in that like positive way of like we have this opportunity to work through this hard thing together in this container where we have this care and commitment to each other. Um, how cool that we get to do that. And like I get to know these parts of you that feel really hurt by how you've been misunderstood or haven't been accommodated in the past or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so valuable to continue to develop this space in which they get to understand how all of the things that you're doing and the ways that you are tackling those are things that you are modeling for them of how they can help their clients move through some of those spaces, and recognizing like what they are carrying into the room with them. Because I think that a lot of us in this industry are really good at partitioning off parts of ourselves to be able to do the thing that we're doing and be here for this person and really be present in that. And in some ways that is so necessary. And in some ways that's a heavy burden to bear as we are sitting in that space. So being able to work with them through some of these pieces and be able to recognize, okay, yeah, I do feel this pain of this rejection or this piece from that's old that comes up for me now, and I'm recognizing, yeah, I bring that in the room here. And then I can also see, wait a second, when my client responds to me like this, maybe there's something old under there, and how now I am changing up how I'm feeling about this piece. I can work with my client in changing up that piece, right? And recognizing, I think, as supervisors, that that's not us giving therapy to our supervisees. I'm not their therapist. I'm not trying to like do therapy. I'm modeling some of these pieces that are impacting their work so that they can do some great work off of this. And there does come a point where we can say things like, okay, I'm going to take you this far. And now I want you to take this and go work with your therapist on it. Like, go do deeper in more in some of that space. And then we're going to keep working on what benefits clients here, what's going to be your professional growth here, and keep identifying those things. But we may not go as deep as we probably could.
Yeah.
Because that's for you and your personal therapist to deal with, right?
Yeah. I think that's a great boundary to like keep in mind as we can like illuminate or like, shine a light on the deeper work that there is to be done. And we can model what it's like to help folks access that and become aware of it and how that might show up in their work. And then we can say like, and now you have this awareness that you can bring to your therapist and let me know how that goes. I'm really, eager to know how that has impacted your work and our dynamic to do that work with your therapist. So it's always like an interesting line to find, because these relationships are very vulnerable and like intimate and depth oriented, and there's still those boundaries that are important because it keeps it the container that it is, and that's part of what makes it so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that we are in relationship with each other, I think across the board, whether we're supervisors, therapists, just human to human, like these relationships can be beautifully reparative when we are intentional about our work with them. And because of the skills that we have, we do have to find these like kind of wiggly lines, right? Like, when is the point where I'm doing this really great modeling, this really great repair work, but I'm not being their therapist? And I'm recommending that they do the deeper work over here. We're just kind of starting out, noticing, digging in a little bit, making the adjustments that we need to. And then I'm going to kind of offer you to do this other work someplace else. And when do we have to do, more of our own work in knowing our boundaries and trying not to get sucked in to the spaces in the same way, again, modeling that, like, if a client is talking about something and they get so deep into the content that, next thing we know, we're looking at them being like, and what did then she say? And then what happened next? Right. And then we have to realize, oh, wait, I got sucked into the drama instead of being a part of the process. I got to lean back and see what's happening here. What's the patterns that are going on here? And not that there's anything wrong with occasionally getting sucked into the drama, but like, because that's so normal and so human. But I feel like that space of when we find ourselves as supervisors getting to that place where we're wondering, like, wait a second, am I doing therapy here? That's probably a good moment to say, maybe I need to take a step back and ask a couple more questions about where they're going to process this further elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's like why supervision of supervision is so helpful, and like having your own therapist, because we're going to have our own stuff show up in the supervisory relationship, and sometimes like maybe our people pleasing or like trauma responses lead us to want to like hold a little bit more than is actually ours to hold, and that's even appropriate in that relationship. So it's always good to keep that awareness, and to know that you can bring that somewhere. You're not like alone in figuring it out either.
Yeah. I love that you brought up supervision of supervision and those consulting areas and having your own therapist. I so believe that we are, especially as an entity, whether we're a group of supervisors, a group of clinicians, whatever, that we as an entity have to lean on each other, that it cannot be solo work. And when people try and do it solo, like, the burden is just too heavy to bear. And it's so much more important that we all just kind of, I always picture us in, I don't, this is probably a terrible imagery, so everybody, take a second. But like, when I think about, when they talk about when planes crash or things like when you are in the ocean specifically, that typically they tell you to like lock arms, and so that you can tread water together, because sharing the buoy of everybody together means that nobody is too tired and will not be able to survive, right?
Yeah.
But that is the imagery I have for the work that we do. And the reason why we have to have these consultation groups and the supervision of supervision and opportunities to connect with each other and share the work that we do is, that's the image in my head, is that we're all just kind of interconnected and we're all trying to do our best to stay above water. And the more that we have on our team, the easier the journey of staying above water is.
Yeah.
That if the fewer people you have on your team, it just means you and 3 people are just struggling. But if you have 15, right, you have your supervision people, you have your consult people, you have your own therapist, gosh, it just makes that journey feel a little less hard, right?
Yeah,
And
and it can be
especially,
a
I feel
hard
like,
journey.
yeah, especially I feel like for our neurodivergent folks who have a lot of their very individual needs that impact them in ways that I don't feel like people maybe necessarily understand, or they've been asked for those accommodations or those pieces. So building a community where where people can ask for what they need, where they can ask about those accommodations that they need, having supervisors who are asking about those things of like, what's rubbing wrong, what's not working for you, what do we need to do to accommodate that, how do we need to adjust your big R to a little r here, like what your belief is about a big R to a little r, if it's something that can be accommodated, and just really kind of growing in the way that they feel so supported that they can actually be there and do their job well, right? And be doing the work that they went into student debt for, right? Like to do that well, because they've got the support of the rest of the community around them.
Absolutely. It's so essential. There's so many things that make this work really challenging and heavy at times. So like we need our people and community to get through it, and not just to get through it, but to do the work really well. We're always learning and growing and learning how we can show up more fully and better for the folks we support. So I love a consultation, having help from somebody.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's something that we can continue to instill in all of our supervisees. That's one of the first questions I ask as people are getting ready to get licensed, because when you're in the process of getting licensed, you have a regular consultation / supervision every month in multiple times, in multiple ways, right? And then once you get licensed, nobody requires that of you anymore. So as my folks are getting licensed, the question I ask them is, okay, what consultation groups do you need? A general one? Do you need one for a specific type of client that you're serving, or a specific type of theoretical orientation or modality? Do you want one to learn how to become a supervisor? Where's your people? And typically I get this kind of like doe-eyed, what do you mean I have to find these things? Like, I don't just have, like, no, you don't. This is where you go out and create these spaces, or find spaces that you're in, so that you can not be alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important, for sure.
Yeah. Well, you have a couple of things that are going on in your practice and offerings that you do. Why don't you tell us a little bit about them, and we'll drop some stuff in the show notes for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we offer individual, couples, and sex therapy in Portland. We also have a student internship program. So we have our student interns for 2025 to 2026. But if folks are looking for internships the following year, I'm super happy to hear from whoever. And then we also have some groups going. So we have a newly diagnosed neurodivergent support group. And we also have a free support group for sex workers that's in person. So
amazing.
Yeah, we have a lovely team doing lots of good work. I'm really proud of all of them. And it's especially like so fun to see the students grow and develop and build relationships with their clients. And it's pretty magical.
Yeah. I also have that you have openings in your practice, that you are looking for new clinicians that are there, and that you do business coaching for neurodivergent helpers and healers. So I want to make sure I get people that information too, because I'm sure that folks are going to be out there listening to this and thinking, I want some of your time, because you're very knowledgeable and very compassionate. And I think that is, it's a huge need and a very good value out there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love working with neurodivergent clinicians who want to build a practice that really is sustainable for them. I also love working with group practices who want to find ways to build like a really equitable practice where they can show up well around their values and also like be sustained themselves. Or if they want to support neurodivergent clinicians and be affirming to staff who are neurodivergent. I love working around that too. So anyway, my website for that is taylorkravitz.com.
Perfect. I will drop that in there. Very, very fun. Thank you so much for being here today. I just have really enjoyed our time, and I hope everybody grabbed something good that they can take into their practice or their supervision work today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This has been Supervision Smorgasbord with Dr. Tara Sanderson. Please like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can find us at drtarasanderson.com/podcast and on all social media at Dr. Tara Sanderson. Thank you, and we will see you next time.